Okay. We're live, Mike.
All
Let's
right,
go.
we are live. Welcome to MarTech Live. Sorry we're running a few minutes late. Friday, August 1st, the cast of characters: Mark Sirkin, CEO of Third Door Media; Mike Pastor, editorial director at MarTech. If you've seen this before, you're familiar with us. We've got two guests this week. Constantine von Hoffman is the managing editor of MarTech.org, and Tim Hillison is the CMO and founder of Entry Point One. What do Con and Tim have in common? They both wrote pieces for MarTech this week about how AI is changing how people buy and how you can react to that. So we're going to get to Tim. We're going to talk to Con about his conversation with Chris Penn. We've got some video clips of that we're going to share as well. We're going to start off with a hot topic, though, and that is the attention economy. Mark, you posed the question: is provocation or outrage the only way to get attention today? You were thinking about Sydney Sweeney and American Eagle and the astronomer mess with that Coldplay back on the map. What are your thoughts about this topic, Mark?
Well, all right. So first of all, I actually like. I'll out myself. I like Coldplay. I guess that makes me mid, as the kids would say, but I like Coldplay. So let's just start there. But yeah, I think what's interesting, and I had a negative reaction to the astronomer thing, just in terms of the Gwyneth Paltrow. I thought it was very clever. I thought it was really creative. It turns out the reports now suggest that it was Ryan Reynolds' agency that did the work, which kind of makes sense. They can move fast. They have those celebrity connections. I felt like it was a little crass, but I also genuinely appreciated the nature of being able to move that fast, and frankly, to put together a very clever, a clever opportunity like that. The Sydney Sweeney stuff, we've seen this playbook before, right? I mean, this is a Brooke Shields deal from back in the day. I mean, using sex to sell makes a lot of sense. Sydney Sweeney is a huge celebrity, but the notion that that there's byproducts of outrage also involved in the social discourse around this seems like part of the playbook, for lack of a better term. And that is interesting to me.
Manufactured?
What's that?
You think it's manufactured?
Do I think it's manufactured? Yeah, I do. I think it's all very calculated. And I think that if you're really good at PR, you're really good at marketing and branding, you tap into the psychology of outrage. And we know what that does on social media. And so we may not like it, it may not feel civil, but it works at some level. I mean, I think that's the debate I think I kind of want to have, which is, does it work long term, or is it just a short term, dope a hit for attention?
Yeah, I think so. On Astronomer, I think the whole thing about Astronomer is that we're in a day and age where people like to see important, wealthy people fall flat on their face. I think a lot of the early outrage was about the stupidity of the people involved, and what some may have read it as hubris. I'm gonna go to a very public place and act that way. I think that Astronomer, if this helps Astronomer, right? If they, as a private company, they don't really have to share anything about their performance. But my guess is if now that they had their 15 minutes of fame, if they get a lot of business from this over the ensuing quarter, 6 months, whatever, I assume there will be a press release talking about their impressive growth. And if there's not, then this was all just a distraction for nothing, right?
I think I would get first. I want to give Astronomer credit for going with Coldplay's ex-wife in the ad. I thought that was a sick burn. I think that Astronomer had to get something out there and respond, because the message, if I'm a B2B buyer and I'm looking at their product, do I want to do business with a company that's run by someone that dumb? It's not. I mean, yes, it was a viral thing, but it was an entirely avoidable viral thing. It got a lot of public attention, but since they're selling B2B, that's not a big deal for them. They really had to defend their product and the fact that they are not idiots. Now, the Sydney Sweeney thing, and this goes to the whole nature of outrage. The I don't know to what extent it was planned to get the pushback it's gotten, but I do know that American Eagle is desperate. They are in the tank. This is the only thing they could think of. That's not good. We've seen a lot of the other outrage moments, most significantly Dylan Mulvaney and Bud, which that wasn't even meant. That wasn't even part of a campaign, and certainly wasn't certainly wasn't something Bud wanted to do. Bud all of a sudden is no longer, after decades of being the number one selling beer in America, they are not the number one selling, and it's not coming back anytime soon.
And on that, Constantine, I think that you bring up a terrific point, is that, brand is more important than ever right now. The culture of outrage and what you've brought up with the Sydney Sweeney and the American Eagle and the Coldplay, Mark, you're cracking me up, is that is just one path to market. And when you choose that and that becomes your brand, that's going to be who your followers are too. And I think that the deeper business question is that what they wanted? Because that's what they're going to get. And there is when we make our bed, we have to lie in it. And so, there are a lot of things that are coming, a Swedish phrase, which is there's not this without consequences. And, there are consequences for that action.
Do we agree or disagree, or is it more nuanced than that outrage is maybe the fastest, best way to get attention, but that there are implications to that attention?
If your brand is outrage, then you've got something you can work with. Other than that, the outrage does not tend to be favorable for the brand. Like, the people who are outraged at American Eagle aren't buying. On the other hand, there's a good chance they weren't buying before either.
Your dog is out. What's your dog outraged about?
My dog is currently outraged that there are people who live in the world and they are behind a door.
Okay, well, fair.
Pardon the barking.
The thing I'd say about the Sydney Sweeney thing, it sort of reminded me at the start of the Got Milk campaign. Remember the Got Milk campaign with all the people with the milk mustaches? And I thought, okay, I think taking this play on words about jeans and Sydney Sweeney and tying it to eugenics was a bit of a stretch, maybe more than a bit of a stretch. If you had other names, other celebrities, and you did the same thing about their jeans, people from different ethnicities, different looks, like they did with Got Milk, you kind of you're just talking about jeans, like attractive people in jeans. It's a play on words. It's not that big a deal. As Con alluded to, because he and I discussed this morning, and we looked up American Eagle's financial situation. I don't know that they can afford to get a whole bunch of celebrities to do that. Their CEO's pay, because of incentives, dropped 11%. He's headed for the bread line. So, he's not going to spend money on more celebrities. So.
Yeah.
Can I just say one thing about that? And that is, and it's very interesting in the inflection point where we are within marketing and AI and everything like that. And that is just the phrase of, and Constantine, back to you, you're making me think of this, as desperate times require desperate measures. And, I think that when people are desperate, that they don't really think very holistically about the consequences, and your outlining of what the financial position is of this company. Some young gun came in and said, let's do this. Well, this is where expertise matters and the type of brand you want. And, even though you're mentioning about Bud, and Bud is one of the top brands in the world, right? That type of blip is small compared to a small brand that does a big action like that. So,
yeah, that's interesting. I mean, so there's a lot of nuance here, right? So the context and the position of the company in the market matter, and what you can get away with and not get away with matter. I think for me, I don't consider myself like a stunt marketer. I like singles and doubles, to use a baseball analogy. I like consistency. I like building brand over time. It makes me uncomfortable when people take big, giant home run swings at stuff like that, because the unintended consequences of such, like in the Sydney Sweeney stuff with the eugenics thing, like it's like that must have come up in a meeting, and they must have chosen to say, like, well, actually, it'll get more attention, I'm presuming, or it didn't come up, in which case they weren't really paying attention. Either way, I don't know. It makes me uncomfortable. Makes me uncomfortable.
And the other thing about Sydney Sweeney is it goes against what the brand had been doing previously, which had been much like Dove. It's like we're celebrating beauty in all forms, and then to do this, you're already presenting like, oh, we're going back to the standard, and so you're you're basically throwing shade on your own brand.
Yeah. Interesting conversation for sure. Mike, you want to keep us rolling? You're on mute.
Sorry about that. We're going to move on to how AI and agentic AI are changing B2B buying. The last thing I'll say about the previous discussion, just to support Mark, Fix You is a great song by Coldplay.
Had to get that one in there, Mike. I love it.
So we're going to start off with a little experiment. Mark loves to share his AI doings on MarTech Live. So we're going to send an agent out to do some work for us before we kick off the discussion. And so Mark's I think you're going to share your screen and show us what you're doing. But we're basically, we're going to ask AI to go out and research marketing project management platforms for a mid-sized marketing team. We'll get that kicked off. Then we'll go to the discussion, and then we'll go back and we'll see what AI found for us. We'll see how this plays into the discussion of Tim's piece.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to connecting the dots here. So what we're looking at on screen is ChatGPT. Let me close the little panel here. Got ChatGPT set up with that question. What are the best marketing project management platforms for mid-sized marketing teams? I've got agent mode turned on here. And if you haven't seen it, let's just let it run for a minute so you can see what this thing does. It's going to think for a minute, and this is part of the reasoning model that now governs these LLMs. But what you see it saying here is it's setting up a desktop, and so I just want to point out as this thing runs, like this is a virtual desktop running inside ChatGPT that is actually browsing the internet. It's looking up websites, it's finding content. You can watch it. It's sort of I don't know. It's almost like ASMR style, like you just sit here and watch it go. You also can look at what the prompts are that it's writing for itself. And so it's discovering things like this says, and I'm looking at this in real time, just like you are. This site uses Cloudflare, which might block our request. This page is blocked by Cloudflare. So it's going to look and it's going to navigate around. That's the sort of agent component as it tries to answer the question. And so we're going to check back on this in a little bit once it's done, and we'll have a conversation with Tim about the incredible piece that you wrote, and we'll go from there. So let me stop sharing my screen, and we'll get into the terrific piece, Tim.
Well, thank you. So why did I write this, right? And that is, we've been hearing for, quite a while, at least I have, as a marketer and go-to-market professional, about the funnel and the playbook and this and that. And, I still find a lot of swirl around what's actually going. And when I talk to people about their AI use, everyone's sort of all over the map. So what I do, at Entry Point One, what we do is we serve engineering-led startups and mid-market scale-ups. And I wanted to give a very practical starting point if people weren't doing this already, right? And that's really how it came up with. And so there's two main foci here, or foci, right here, focuses. One is the dynamic buyer blueprint. And what is that? That is, so many people use static ICPs. A lot of people use signals. There's a lot of signal providers, but what signals and how do you align? Because, when GTM is a team sport and most people are used to operating in silos. And what do I mean by that? I mean that not only do you have your team, and so people can play well on the team, but there's a broader team. And if you don't understand the functions of those teams, it's hard to come together. But I think that what's more intrinsic to the way people operate is the biases in their head about how they should operate and how they should use AI. And it's different across how they do it, how their team does it, and how the GTM team does it. And that adds a layer of complexity that's that's theoretically very easy to discuss, meaning we should be aligned, right? And everyone knows the right words, but very difficult to implement. And so again, why I did this for MarTech was because I was thinking, gosh, starting is hard. Let's have a starting point and let's discuss about where we can go from there. And, we're in an age of leveling up, and I got to tell you, I don't think that there's ever been a more exciting time to be a marketer again, so let's go. Right. And so, you're navigating buying behavior, right? It's increasingly fragmented. And so why? Right. And that is because people look differently about it. It's about proof. It's about relevance. It's about systems. Just look at the agent that you just ran. Right. I mean, that just tells us, and people are not using, Google anymore. They're using Perplexity. They are. A lot of people are using Google, but you know what I'm saying, right? For the early adopters or for the innovators, right? And so I think that we all know AI is here to stay. How do we unpack it? Right? Again, dynamic buyer blueprint where signals change. So if you have a static ICP, you are losing, right? You're already losing, and then everyone focused on case studies for so long, and they're great. However, it's not about one logo anymore. It is about a system of proof, right? Because people have different needs and they're becoming more and more nuanced as rivalry and competitiveness expand. And so again, those are the two plays that I did. So I'd love to dig in and hear what your thoughts are and open it up a bit.
Yeah, I'll be honest, Tim. I thought the article was great, but it took me two reads to get. The first time I read it, I was sitting eating lunch, and I was like, I think I know what he's getting at here, but it confused me. It disoriented me until I read it again, and I was like, oh, this is actually really important. It's very grounded. I really actually appreciate it, and we'll show some of the charts in a minute. I'm curious. I believe the post has gotten quite a bit of reaction on LinkedIn. What's been the feedback to it, just before we get into our own feedback? Because I think it's been pretty good. I didn't look that closely, but what are you hearing?
Yeah, what I'm hearing is, oh my God, there's actually a system to do this, right? And this is really easily talked about and very difficult to do. You've given me a starting point. And again, it's funny, based on your comment, yeah, I'm not a writer for like People magazine. So I'm sorry about that, but that's a great feedback.
No, I think to be honest, Tim, I think it speaks to the gap between it's easy to talk about. It's very because as I'm reading it, I'm like trying to go like, well, how do I adapt this for real? Like, what are the
Right, I'd
steps to
say
take? Which is
that
why I
that
think,
there is important. There's been a lot of reaction. I
yeah,
mean, and just some quotes are, you know, here from a CEO. This hits home. I remember the early days when showing up first wasn't enough. Being on their radar before they even knew they needed you is the new battleground. Adapting GTM to meet buyers in their AI-driven research phase isn't optional anymore. It's survival. Right. And this goes to talk about, the SEO playbook. And, so much SEO is out there, but GEO and how we index with AI and LLMs. And there is I wouldn't say, I would not follow, I don't like playbook. I don't use that term anymore. When someone tells me playbook, that means that they want to implement someone else's strategy with me. And no, absolutely not. And that's not how we operate. I think that, though, if we look at it, right, SEO is a channel. Google's a channel. It's not a channel. Here's another quote. AI isn't just a new channel, it's a gatekeeper. If your GTM motion doesn't adapt, you'll never make the shortlist, right? And then, Kerry Cunningham, who I quoted because he's a good friend of mine, came in and he said, oh my God, a social proof stack outperforms a single badge. And that is just you've got one logo, great, you're a new business. It doesn't mean you still can't index on other things. And there's ways to do that, whether it's reviews, whether it's content, but it is a strategy that comes together.
Yeah. Also, this episode sponsored by Playbook Broken, my podcast. So check that out on the MarTech YouTube channel.
Timely.
Timely. Thanks for that tee up.
One of the things that the immediate thing that struck me about the start of this article, Tim, is when we talk about Khan's conversation with Chris Penn in a few minutes. I think it's one of the clips that we have. He gives a first person account of doing this. He had a SaaS app that was going to do a price increase, and he sent an agent out to find out what else was out there and what the pricing was, and basically called them and said, I got this pricing. If that's still your pricing, let's do this. And neither side knew. The incumbent didn't know why they lost his business. The new business didn't know where he came from. And that turns everything we thought we knew about marketing, especially in B2B SaaS, upside down.
This is a really interesting point, Mike. I mean, obviously I'm looking at our podcast, and and again this MarTech Live, and we have gray hair, and then when I talk to people, and then Mark made this point about mid, which I'm going to take a while to get over, but I work with people of all ages, right, in my business. And, I can't even tell you how much critical thinking and experience is important in doing this, right? And so we can all use AI, right? And there's tons of stats on it. It's how you use it. And again, and talking and working across CEOs, CROs, CMOs, but also managers and those people, associates that are doing this. My goal was to give something that was a starting point. And based on what you said, we go in, we are just hit with data. We are not integrating it. We are accumulating it. And how do we actually make a difference, through those 100 Slack pings and, the texts and this and that and the other. And I was just like, look, I build connected plays to move revenue. I'm just going to build a real simple one because, if it's KISS, call me stupid, this is how I'd like to start. And I was looking at it, and Mark, I don't know if you have like the charts up there, but we can go over those. And that is, look, what's the context? Everyone's running their own prompts. Everyone's running their own tools. So you're already siloed. Okay. I mean, so the ideal thing is to come in 15 minutes, you hand the revenue team one testable buyer sentence, one, right? Let's start small and prove that the market and the AI agents agree. Right. And if they don't, then that's where you can align. Right. And so, one of the things that I think is I would like to run this over time. These things are changing constantly. So if you run it one day and you run it next day, you're going to have different things. That's not a way to manage it. Look for prompt variants. Right. Look for how your brand appears in the top 3 in Perplexity or for that shared prompt, but you're all looking the same way, right? And then what this chart does is it says, look, you can do this in minutes, not in hours. I do stand-ups with my clients. I'm super big into agile. You could do a weekly meeting, whatever it is, but, sticky notes, feedback capture, prompt merge and post, instant value drop, just ship one ungated asset that you can come up through it. And so there's ideation in there, and then a weekly KPI post, right? And I mean, and that's all you need to do to actually align. So, the word's beautiful, but are you doing it? I was just like, look, I see this is a huge problem still. right? And, GTM Partners is a partner of mine. They say that, 68% of confusion is around internal GTM alignment still. And they've talked to thousands of companies. And so really, again, this was not meant to be anything, but look what you can do simply. I put Notion in here because I love it, but you could use Google Workspace. You could use Microsoft Office 365. It's really platform agnostic. You're already using the AI, right?
Yeah, this is great. I think that these charts really brought it to life. I mean, even hearing you talk about it brings it even further to life. And it's funny because Mike had an idea the other day about some recent content about this topic, actually, that we could potentially bundle. And we had a discussion about gated, ungated, and I had just read your article, so I was like, we should do it ungated, like Tim says.
Well, thanks. I will click.
Exactly. Should we check in on the bot?
Yeah, let's check in on the bot, and then let's
All right.
let's take care of the last social proof ladder too.
Awesome. All right, let's check in. We're checking in. This thing is still going. Look at this.
Yeah, but it hasn't been going that long, to be perfectly
No, it
honest with
hasn't.
you.
So it has returned. It actually has returned something here for us. This is this is kind of the heart of the issue, right? Here are several project management platforms that work well for mid-sized marketing teams. Each platform helps teams coordinate tasks, track campaigns, and collaborate, but they differ in capability. So this thing and again, we saw the prompt, right? This is my entire prompt. Talk about prompt alignment. And it generated what appears to be a chart that is mid 2025. It includes the platform, in this case, Asana, Monday.com, Reich, a bunch of others. Why it's good for marketing teams. What are the pros and cons? I can copy and paste this thing out. It looks like it's got tons of citations. It's even printed a guide here for us, how to choose. For mid-sized marketing teams, look for software that balances flexibility, collaboration, reporting without the cost of complexity or enterprise tools. So like the agent's actually done, which is kind of amazing. And now, of course, we could do follow-on questions on top of that to flesh out even further what we're talking about. So that's actually like kind of incredible from a research standpoint.
I think that goes to show you the pace, right, of which we're moving at, but also, back to this use case, how are you showing up? Right? Yeah. And what are people doing to research? Because your research, I could have done different research, Mike different, and Constantine even different. And we would have come up with similar but different results. And that's hard when all you say is, I want to show up like XYZ, right? Because you may need to show like XYZ, to the 15th or something.
Yeah. One of the reasons we actually chose the marketing project management sector, if you will, is because there are a lot of household names when you go back, right? We've got Asana, we've got ClickUp, we've got Monday. And one of the things we were curious about is I expect to get those names. Who else are we going to get?
Well, you see here, we got Teamwork, Airtable, Zoho projects, and then we got Scoro, Basecamp, we got Trello, something called Morning Mate, Motion. So it really, Team Hood, I mean, it uncovered a lot of options here that are not top tier brands.
And it's if you are one of those top brands, maybe Motion, not to be confused with Notion, as Tim was using, maybe it was somebody you weren't worried about so much as far as your market share, right? But if they start showing up in the same table as you, and that's kind of the difference between the old Google search and the AI agent in a lot of ways.
Hey, I have a question, and that is, I'm looking at this and reading this in real time, and I want to sort of zoom out to focus, right? Previously at enterprises, we would buy subscriptions of Forrester and Gartner, and it would cost us, thousands, tens of thousands, even more per year. We've just done an analysis on an agent that's returned something in 15 minutes and sort of replaced my magic quadrant or my wave. And I think that it's important to understand when we talk about disrupting industries that we're also, I hate the word, but, because everyone uses it, so I'm going to use it, right? Democratize information. The accessibility is right there, but it's again how you use it. Your expertise will condition what types of results you get. But it's interesting to note that, even from the lawsuits of scraping the New York Times and everything that's there, how we're progressing forward with this type of access to real-time decisioning information around a product management platform. And Mike, to your point, there are certain players that you expect to be there. There are certain that are there. But I was thinking while you were saying that, who isn't that should be? Right. And that's where the analysts had this broader coverage again, because if you knew any of them, and I know quite a bit or quite a few of them, and that is they are experts in that field. And so their job was to surface expertise so that one would make a comprehensive decision. That's not necessarily the objective of our prompt.
Right. That's right. And I think that's actually the point of like, we have this platform that we now have this agent result, and we can now ask those questions, right? We could take that result and share it with a consultant, or we can just keep digging. Hey, go, reprompt this thing and say, hey, go to G2, pull back the ratings, add it to the table. Share it with my Notion board so I can share it with the team so we can look at it. Build an RFP for these three. Try to find pricing, try to find reviews, go on Reddit, find like the power of that agent is a multiplying effect that I don't think any of us fully understand because we haven't done it for long enough to know like what are the possibilities. They're just there.
Yeah, structured and unstructured data. Should we go to the second use case?
Yeah.
Okay, so again, let's talk about a place to start. Customer marketing came into its own probably around 2019. Then through COVID, people were really searching as they were becoming more digital. And now we're completely disrupted. And, I think that we need to celebrate all wins so that when a company, lands a new logo, hey, it's great. But if you're, previously people would be spending a month trying to get all the information. And I just don't think that workflow is feasible anymore, right? Whether it's a quote or not. And so there's sort of separate workflows involved, right? And, data proves volume, stories prove relevance, outcomes prove ROI, and POV proves leadership. There's a lot in there. So it's complex. And if you have expertise creating a data set for your ICP that is in and around what their considerations would be, their pain points, really what they are doing, that is much more than a single case study. And so what this is about is exactly that, right? And so, AI first discovery, they've already shown up. They're already influenced. As Carrie Cunningham says, 81% have chosen your brand before they've even talked to sales. And what this does is it helps teams adapt their content, their outreach, and their enablement in ways where the GTM team feels aligned again. And that's perhaps the nuance. And I'll have to go through the article again to see if I explain that so people understood that. But what we see are analyst mentions, press coverage, peer validation, customer logos, proof points, right? But the way to describe that is they're opening the door, you're in the middle. How do you sort of take them by the hand or walk together through that? And I think that that's still being defined right now. But I will say that, as a marketer, my clients, I'm coaching, well, not coaching, but implementing new ways of building a POV so that they stand out from the sea of sameness. But really, proof is that hard differentiator. And if we can all align around that, it's going to be much easier to be found in an AI-driven world.
Good stuff.
Yep. All right, okay. Tim, I think you've got it up, right?
Great to hear you, Tim.
Yeah. Tim, by the way, is going to be joining us November 4th, free online MarTech conference about AI and agents. Tim, I'll talk to you then. I'll talk to you before then. But
thanks, guys. I appreciate having me on the show today. And happy Friday and have a great weekend, okay?
Thanks for hanging out, man.
Bye, guys.
See ya. All right. Good stuff there.
Yep. All right. Segue to Con and his conversation with Chris Penn. I just right before Tim had sort of just mentioned a number from Kerry Cunningham. Shortly before we came on today, I got an email from Sales Peak. 70% of B2B buyers finish research before talking to sales. Increasingly, it's not them doing the research, it's AI assistants, ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, etc. Can your website pass the AI test? Most can't. Nearly 30% are missing critical info like pricing, KPIs, and competitor comparisons.
Yeah, pricing is a big one, right? Because for a long time, especially enterprise software would have,
Call for quote.
call for quote. They're gonna feel the pain of doing that. I think we're gonna see that change because of the AI interface. Is my guess.
Yeah. All right, Con, why don't you take us through, summarize for us your conversation with Chris Penn? We've got some clips too.
Well, basically, Chris said, look, AI is cutting out marketing, is cutting out sales by any direct contact with a company. As he gives the example of, he needed, one SAS vendor upped his prices, so he went and asked AI to find, gave all the specifications, number of seats, size of company, all that, and he got a list of providers, and he went with one that was 30% cheaper and had better service. And so now the first vendor has no idea why he left, and the second vendor doesn't have any idea why he came. So this is a huge difference. I think, and even in situations, and this was just for a small, obviously he paid for his credit card and it was just a small thing, but even for larger purchases, the balance of information is now on the side of the customer. When they have to go into a negotiation now, it's not, I hope you can't get away with much if you're sales, and if they talk to sales at all. And I just want to point out this, which came in, and I got a report from Tropic, and it's talking about price spreads in SAS for the same. It said the price spreads for the same software and volume, and companies are paying wildly different prices. It said DocuSign, there's 110% variance. Figma, which is now worth $65 billion, is flat at 0. HubSpot came in at 35%, and you're going to know that. You're going to know what those prices are, and you're going to be able to make your case and back the vendor into a corner.
Price. What you're talking about, I think, is both price elasticity and price transparency.
Yep.
It's great to have one, but not the other if you're the business. It's great to have both if you're the customer.
Yep.
Yeah. Interesting.
So, yep.
Let's play a clip. Let's see. I got this new. We're trying a new feature here, so let's attempt to play a clip. It's a pretty short clip. It's from the interview that you did with Chris. By the way, is the full video available on martech.org?
Not yet.
Not yet, but will be soon. Okay, cool. Let's give this a shot, and we'll listen to Chris talk a little bit.
Again, it will shorten the process. Right? I think it will shorten the process dramatically, where you will have the people who are looking at the candidates are going to be like, oh, okay, so these are the things that are available to me, right? So I can say, here's the short list of 18 vendors. Out of the 18, the 28 candidates, here's the 7 that meet the qualifications we set down. So it's going to mean things like, obviously, traditional search is still very important because these tools are all grounded in traditional search. However, it also is going to change, or it will change, how companies publish information on their websites, right? So if I said, I want a new CRM and the cost has got to be, $30 a month per user, per seat or less, and you don't have pricing on your website, guess what? You don't make the list anymore.
And I think that's a key point, that transparency is more important than ever. And you have to put up all the information. Your brand has to say, okay, this is what we have. These are the, these are the qualifications or price tiers. And really, I mean, the interesting thing to me is this is kind of a culmination of a trend that started back during, in 2020, when buyers started to, they more and more went online to do their research, and they they understandably show, were doing their own research and did not want to talk to sales. And this has always struck me when it comes to companies doing business, is they aren't looking at things from the customer perspective. They aren't applying their own experience to the customer experience. Nobody likes talking to sales.
I do know, but I think that's part of that is a broken sales culture. I think, because sales is, I'll defend sales. I'll take the position. I think I would even say I'm right. I mean, sales in its purest form should be providing enormous value to connect the buyer and the seller. Here's what we have. If it fits, it fits, and now you buy it from me and you get value, and we shake hands and go on. I think the problem is when it gets distorted, right? When you start to not be transparent about what the tools can or should do, or the status of a feature, or the pricing, as we've been talking about from a transparency standpoint. So I think the sales culture in selling these kinds of B2B software products can get wonky. I think is the right way to say it.
And I think the other thing is that, we've all had good sales. We've all had good experience with salespeople. I didn't want to rain on them entirely, but there's also something that happens when you're like, okay, I've got a really good connection with my sales rep, and then you get handed off to somebody else, who's going to be your account rep, and how well does that, you have to start the whole relationship over, but B, are they going to be, you always wonder, are they going to be as useful as my sales rep was? Are they going to be as responsive? So, I mean, that's the other part. I mean, that's something sales gets tagged with, which it doesn't deserve.
That's true. It's interesting. I'm looking forward to watching the whole video. I think
the other thing that Chris said in that clip, sort of early on, related to sales and to revenue organizations, the AI research is going to make the whole process go faster.
Yep.
And that's certainly true of the easy purchases. But when you think about how important the length of the sales cycle is to revenue organizations at complex purchases, a more educated buyer, more educated team of buyers for the big purchases speeds up the sales cycle, which is, I think there's a lot of the discussion around this is sort of doom and gloom for the way we've been doing go to market, especially in B2B. Faster sales cycles aren't necessarily a bad thing if you're the winner.
Do you think the sales cycle gets compressed, or do you think the research part of the sales cycle gets compressed and therefore drags the rest of it in, or do you think the sales cycle actually stays long? It's just that front part of it narrows it down faster. Maybe it's the same difference.
I think if somebody comes in with a bunch of information, like, if you have a good idea of what you need, you have a good idea of what's available, and the sales cycle is still like 6 to 9 months, then something's probably wrong. I mean, I would expect it would go quicker if I enter a sales process with all that information that, like, we're seeing from the agent.
So what's so interesting is that maybe, I mean, it's a hypothesis, maybe by being less transparent, by hiding pricing, you're actually demonstrably hurting yourself, right? Maybe by freeing all that information, you actually could unlock a sales cycle that was shorter, but it would be a change in your playbook, right? It would be a change in, like, okay, we can't obfuscate. We actually have to be transparent, because the AI is not, it's going to go digging.
Yeah. You need clear, structured SEO because SEO, the principles of SEO aren't going away. They're actually more important than ever. The content that really answers buyers' questions, that isn't about, we're going to give you a nice fluffy answer. It answers them directly. And, as we've all been saying, you really got to rethink how product and pricing data are out there, and how do you make them as accessible as possible, and make it clear. And I want about the doom and gloom. I think I was talking to my wife, who's a big muckety muck at a big institution and does then they buy software. And I think it's important to remember that this is just one type of interaction in the sales. A lot of the sales will depend upon, if you have existing, it will depend on lock-in. It will depend on, you have an existing account with people and, they're making deals. So it's not, this is just one way, the value of the customer you already have is not going away. So, and the customer you already have is much more valuable than the customer you are trying to get.
Interesting stuff for sure.
Clip from Chris, right?
Yeah, let me see if I can get another clip. Let's see. I didn't label them right, but hold on. Let's see.
Yeah, it will.
Here we go. This might take a second to buffer. See what Chris has got to say, and then we'll.
Here's one of the analogies I go with. There are groups of people who are audiophiles who will have large arguments about which set of headphones has the better sound profile and which audio formats, FLAC or AIFF or this or that, have the highest fidelity. For the rest of us, we listen to Spotify or whatever, which is garbage audio. Like, when you look at the actual audio profile of the spectrogram, you go, wow, that sucks. But the vast majority of people accept the lowest quality because it's cheap and convenient. That is humanity in a nutshell. We will gladly trade security and privacy and quality for speed and cost. And as a result, that's part of the reason why these tools are so popular.
Popular.
There you go. Popular. Got cut off.
Let me.
But I think, Con, you were there, but the conversation was kind of like, is this the best way to do research? Like Tim, before he left, mentioned paying Gartner and Forrester lots of money for expert opinion to help you evaluate tools. And we've all got something cheap and easy. And we make that trade-off, like Chris said.
It's essential, everybody needs to remember that of the skills, AI is programmed first to be helpful. And then later, that's the first priority. So it's always going to try and give you an answer. It's one of the reasons we get so many hallucinations. It's always going to try, so you have to remember that. And I mean, it's easier to trust something that you can check, like the results you showed on on your search, Mark, where, there are a lot of links and it is easy to go, oh, okay, is that right? And I click on it and I can see. The problem comes in, especially in B2C purchasing, when people just go with that first answer. They're not looking for all of them. They just go with the first top answer. And yeah.
I think we got one more Chris clip too.
People are changing slowly, but it's happening, changing their buying habits. This is especially important in B2B marketing. Deep research tools like OpenAI, Perplexity, whatever, allow B2B consumers to shortcut the shortlist process. So I'll give you an example. I got a price increase from a vendor, and I said to Gemini Deep Research, this vendor's giving me a price increase. Find me 5 alternatives that meet these criteria. This price per seat per month, this. Give me the list rank ordered by price and meeting alignment to my requirements. And in 15 minutes, it gave me a list of 5 new vendors all of which were price decreases compared to the vendor that I was working with. And I switched. I chose a vendor off the list. I cut my costs in half. For infrastructure costs for a SaaS service. The service, I get twice as much service. So I get, more processing, more compute, whatever, for half the monthly cost. And it took me 15 minutes. And the company that lost my business has no idea why. I just vanished in the night. And this new company also has no idea why, because I just went onto their self-serve sign-up portal, swiped the credit card, and now I'm using their services.
One of the things Mike, getting back to the stat you had about 70% of buyers, when I talk to Chris, like, he's the smart of the smart and he's the cutting edge, so he frequently tells me things that aren't going to happen for months down the line. So it's very interesting to see that it is already happening. That this is not that I was wondering, is it a culture shift? At what point, is it younger buyers? Is it what? But none of that matters. It's like people, B2B buyers are tuned into the usefulness of AI, and they're going right to it. They figured this out without anybody telling them.
Yep, it's turning that world upside down. Do we want to check in on the bot one more time, or ask it a question, or we just want to do our weekly "What's on your feed"?
It's up to you. We got 3 minutes. So
Okay,
you want to just wrap it up?
Yeah, let's jump to the feeds quick. 1 second. Feed, LinkedIn, share. My LinkedIn feed. Sitting on a park bench on a lovely summer day. It's not 1 billion degrees here in the Northeast anymore, so it's actually too nice a day to be here. What else I got going on? Zapier. Zapier is a hugely popular tool in RevOps and marketing ops. Databricks. Brian's with Databricks. Let's see. Tamara Scott, a new MarTech contributor. Ranting against workplace personality tests. Copywriters do not write copies. This is, LinkedIn's so into video, it's the picture that got me to stop scrolling. So there you go. Put your images with your LinkedIn posts. And speaking of Gartner, there we go. Still plugging away even in an AI world. CAFPay, another MarTech contributor, wrote a piece about email strategy, basically claiming you don't copy everybody else. I would say that's good for strategy in general, not just email.
Well, I'm gonna pass on this because I just realized I'm logged into LinkedIn on a different browser, so there's no fun visuals for me.
I'll
do that. Here, I'll do mine real quick. And then we'll wrap it up. Hold on, let me get linked up. LinkedIn. All right. Share my screen. Let's see what we got here. Got 20 notifications, I'll tell you that much. All right, I got Corey Munchblock talking about rewatching Barbie. This Barbie is a CE no. Okay. AIG ad, there you go. Sam Weston, global head of industry at WPP. Why does the M- come in for so much hate when the real tell on AI generated posts are multicolored emoji bullets and checkboxes? Okay. John Willis, an AI guy, DevOps, godfather of DevOps. He posts a lot of good stuff. If you're interested in AI, John is a great follow. He's got a new book out called Rebels of Reason. It's awesome. He's talking about, imagine this, Stack Overflow users not liking AI tools. AI code tools might be putting to cut and paste folks out of business. Yeah, there's a real debate in the Stack Overflow community on AI. Obviously, this is something about humans, stop fake users. I feel like this might be an ad. Kathy Konevsky, my old colleague from the nonprofit days. She's terrific. There's Us Live. This is the second week in a row this has happened where we're looking at ourselves in the multiverse. Here's me talking about John Willis. Sean Quango, former MarTech keynote speaker and a full-time keynote speaker now. He's an incredible guy. He's doing his thing. Yeah. One more. Let's see. I think that's an ad. Here we go. We got Marissa from the Marketing Millennials IG account. Too good not to reshare here. I know at least a handful of you in my network can relate to this. Daniel Murray. Yep. Jay Schwedelson. What do we got here? We got some kind of video. Speaking of video, POV, how much I trust ChatGPT for work. Oh, there you go. Well, let's play that again. Oh.
That just reminds me, I have a foreshadowing. I have an article coming up. I interviewed Teresa Barrera, who's the CMO at Sapient Publicis, and she called, because of the need for critical thinking skills more than tech skills, she's calling AI the revenge of the English major.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
and as a proud liberal arts major for whom higher math is higher math and confusing, it is an interesting change, and putting, how are we going to shift that back to that, and understanding and understanding and knowing who has those skills. But look, it's going to be a fun article.
Yeah, can't wait. I think that's it, Mike.
All right. That'll do it for MarTech Live for August 1st. We'll do it again next week. After our weekend, we'll plan what it is we're going to talk about next week.
Exactly.
Have a good weekend, guys.
Thank you, guys.
See you guys. Thanks.
Bye.